Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Last week's show, and the number of the show was number 221. So show 221, we talked about 2 nurses who told us how one of the nurses has this special gift of noticing when children are ill. They have a sense. It's an inner sense. They've often seen young children and just get a premonition that there's something wrong. They have an illness, and they tell the parents, take the child to the doctor, and they've been very successful at this. And I was talking to 2 nurses. The other nurse confirmed about their friend really has this gift and this talent. And I didn't have time to get into it. There wasn't enough space. But I also met, on like the next couple of days after that, I met 2 parents, a husband and wife who were parents. And when I, shared my card and shared my story and my books, etc., I asked people after I share my story, do you have miracles in your life? Do you have coincidence miracles that you can share with me from your life? And this couple told me about a case, and it follows up on the 2 nurses, because the parents told me that they had a sense that there was something wrong with their child, that the child was ill by the way they were behaving, the way they were talking, the way they were doing things. They weren't behaving like normal. And it was a very young child. It seemed like the child was below the age of 3. And they went to the doctor to get the baby checked, and the doctor said, no problem, you're worrying too much, you're trying to observe, don't worry, kids grow out of things. But this went on for a while, a couple of weeks, and it just kept bothering the parents because they just kept feeling more and more there's something wrong. And they checked with another doctor and got the same thing, no problem. And thank God they persisted, because they went to the 3rd doctor and they found out the child really did have a very serious blood disorder. And I don't know why the other 2 doctors never stumbled on it or did the right tests, I don't know. But the parents were certainly making the point to me, they're positive that God himself was inspiring them to keep going to the doctors and keep persisting and get a different doctor, because God was inspiring them. There was something wrong with their child, and it was a very serious blood disorder. And thank God they caught it in time, and now the child is fine. But this is an amazing story, and it confirms again, just like last week's story in week number 221, God gives us gifts, all of us. I mean, if we are God's friends, we're God's friends, and if you read the Bible, you'll find out that God's friends are given gifts. There's gifts and talents. There's abilities that we get because now we're on, let's say we're on God's team, and on God's team, we each have a role to play. So we get gifts, and you have to search out what they are. And I did. That's why I wrote 2 books. I found out my gifts were certain things, and that's why I wrote the 2 books I did. That's why I go to beaches and public places and pass out cards, because I found out what my gift is. These parents found out what theirs are. The 2 nurses found out what theirs are. And all of us need to ask God to show us what our gifts are. So this was a great story about the parents helping all of us to take a deep breath and notice what are the gifts you have. If you're God's friend, you certainly have some kinds of gifts, even if it's just being an evangelist, just if your gift is to tell the rest of the world the good news that God is really real. God's not an imagination. He's very real, and he's with every person. And maybe that's your gift. You're supposed to tell everybody you know that you are positive that God is real. Our next story is something that happened to me. If you've been listening to the last 2 weekly reports, 220, 219, I guess from maybe 218 onward, you'll know that I was in a very busy period of my life, doing a lot of visiting beaches and passing out cards, and a lot of things was happening to me during this 4-week period. And so what happened on this particular week was I had gone to the beach on a Saturday. I spent something like 6 hours at the beach, walking around, passing out cards, answering questions that people asked about miracles and how do you know there's a God. There's some set basic questions people ask, like how do you know there's really a God, and how do you know that God is really talking to you, and how do you know that thought you got was really something God told you about. And what does the Bible say about all these things, et cetera, et cetera. So people have a lot of questions, and if you spend 6 hours talking to people in the heat at the beach, I'll tell you, you get exhausted. So I was driving home after a very successful day, and I've already shared the stories from the past days, but it was very successful, and I know that God touched a lot of people with telling the stories about what's in our books, et cetera, and on our website. Let me tell you our website address again. It's wcatradio.com/miracles/ It's very easy to remember. It's Cat Radio. Very simple to remember, right? Cat Radio. So let me say it again. It's wcatradio.com/miracles/. One more time. wcatradio.com/miracles/. Okay. And you get a lot of free information, wealth of information. So when I'm out evangelizing and telling people things, what's on the website is, my source of information that I tell them things about. So I was driving home, I was exhausted, and I was getting inspired that God wanted me to go back to the beach again tomorrow. I mean, just the trip alone is like an hour and 20 minutes to get to the beach, hour and 20 minutes to get back home. So just that could be exhausting. So I couldn't really believe that God really wanted me. I wasn't feeling very strong at the moment. I was tired. And I had a lot of other things that were on the back burner that I had to get done, other chores. So I was asking God on the way home, can you please give me a sign, show me a clue? Because in the Bible, God has given people clues when he wanted them to do something and they weren't sure, and they weren't sure if they were hearing him correctly, they would ask him for a clue, and he would give them clues. And the best example of that is in the Bible, in the book of Judges, chapter 6. So if you go to the Bible, book of Judges, chapter 6, you'll see where God gave General Gideon a clue. And the book of Genesis, chapter 24, is another great place. So Genesis 24 is a great case where a clue is given to someone about choosing Rebekah as a wife, okay? So I asked God for a clue, and it's okay. The Bible, there's 2 cases I just told you about, Genesis chapter 24 and book of Judges chapter 6. And so I asked God, can you give me a clue? And I got inspired. Yes, I'll give you a clue that I want you to go to the beach again tomorrow and pass out cards. And God inspired me to ask for a clue. And I said, gee, Lord, I'd rather not ask you for a clue. I'd rather you tell me what kind of a clue you're going to give me. And God inspired me, no, go ahead, just ask the next thought you get in your head, what kind of a clue. So next thought I got was, okay, if you could send me a license plate, I was driving on the highway. If a license plate could pass me with a holy number, and that's 3 digits, like 3 3s, 3 5s, 3 9s, so 3 holy numbers, as long as it's not 3 6s, it's a holy number. So anything other than 3 6s, if you get 3 7s or 3 5s, is a holy number. So I said, God, if you could send me that, send me a holy number, and then send me another case of the same number again before I get home. I'll be driving for an hour right now. So if you send me 3 numbers, and then again the same 3 numbers show up again before I get home. And I got inspired, okay, that's fine. And then I thought that God was saying this is all fine, but then what occurred to me, which is typical, the devil gets you to doubt, and the Bible says that in the book of Mark, chapter 4, verse 15, okay? Mark 4:15 says, when God tells you something, the devil immediately tries to make you doubt, okay? So remember that, all right? Book of Mark, chapter 4, verse 15, warns us, God's going to tell you what to do, and the devil's going to make you doubt. So I doubted. I said, God, I can't believe, maybe I'm asking too much. Maybe this is too much for you to do. Maybe it's impossible today. Maybe I'm asking an impossible thing. And I got inspired by God. Don't worry about it. I'm God. I can do anything. And the next thing that happened, like a split second later, was that I'm on the highway on Route 95, and instantly I entered into a traffic jam. All the traffic was stopped, bumper to bumper. I could see that I had looked to me like 2 miles ahead, and all the cars were stopped. And everybody was just sitting. It was hot, and we were sitting and we're not moving. And so I was troubled by it, and I said, gee, God, this is terrible. I mean, I prayed now that the traffic jam would clear up, or there's going to be a lot of people frustrated. I often do that in traffic jams. I get inspired, pray, and it often clears up. I mean, I'm not making this up. It's happened many, many times. I'll pray in a traffic jam and it clears up. And I'm sure it's not just me, but anybody who prays will probably have the same thing happen. So I said a prayer, and as soon as I said a prayer, the traffic started moving, but only in the left lane. So I was stuck in the right lane, immobile, stuck in the right lane, and the left lane is moving now. And then it stops again, but when it stops, the last car that stopped right next to my car, I could see its license plate was 999. So right next to me, I just got 3 numbers. I'd asked God for a clue, and it just showed up. 3 9s, holy number, right next to me. And then the right lane started moving, and the left lane started moving, and we started moving up. The left lane moves forward a little bit, and the car that was 999 pulls in front of me. So now I'm driving, and right in front of me is a car with 3 9s, and the traffic stops again, and here's what happened. When the traffic stopped again, there was a car on the left side with 3 9s and the car in front of me with 3 9s, 2 cars right in front of me exactly at the same time. And God had told me he was going to send me 3 numbers, 3 holy numbers, and the number was 999. And there I was in a traffic jam. The car on the left had 999. The car on the right had 999. One was a New York car. One was a Rhode Island car. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, my God. God sent me 3 9s right now, simultaneously, right after, a split second after, he told me to ask for a sign of 3 numbers, holy numbers, to show up twice before I got home. This is totally unbelievable, I know. I know, I lived it. I was not believing it while it was happening, but it happened. And I tell you truthfully, God is amazing. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.